Hello everybody, how's it going? So welcome to another One Piece review. This time we're covering manga chapter 1114. I thought was a loaded chapter. And the funny thing is, like, this chapter kind of like ties in with the previous episode, episode 1103. We got a glimpse of the world building in that episode, what I thought was a really good, well done episode, especially when it comes to, again, like some of my favorite content when it comes to like the Egg Island is Joyboy and the characterization throughout this entire arc has been amazing. Whether you want to attribute that through the manga or the anime has done a phenomenal job. With every scene the Bonnie's in, they add that little extra something, even if it's a scene that doesn't necessarily mean much in the whole grand scheme of things, because it's a build-up. Like the whole thing with Kuma and her father being revealed, like the way that was revealed back in episode 1092, that was masterfully done, especially with the voice acting. Same thing here. Barney's on the warpath, understandably so, because she wants to know why Vegapunk did what he did to Barney, not knowing the situation. We know the situation, or we have some idea of the situation, but Barney doesn't. That's why I feel it was masterfully done, especially with the anime. Like the facial expressions for Barney are on point, as well as like pretending to be like her because she reverted to being a child, which even Vegapunk was like changed. His age was like he was changed younger again, so he's more vulnerable this time. On a side note, in the previous chapter, like his brain was like in some type of container, so he literally took out his brain and put it in a machine so it could be studied. Apparently, we got much bigger reveals. Either way, the whole build-up of Barney chasing after Vegapunk, and then the switch as soon as she enters that sacred room with the paw on the door. And I don't know whose choice it was to include that new OST, but that really hit the mark, especially for that moment. When Barney turns around again, it echoes what happened to, in my opinion, episode 1092, because the same thing happened as soon as she heard Kuma's voice through the Pacifista police. She turned slightly and noticed Kuma. I thought that was a great touch. It's the same thing here where she noticed the paw. She walked into the room. It was well built up, and she saw the paw bubble, which was also teased in the opening. So it was spoiled there. But yeah, whoever's choice it was to include that new OST as well as in charge of the art and animation for this scene, they deserve a raise because that was on point. And the episode mirrors what happened in this chapter, coincidentally enough, because we go to certain different locations. We see Kid is arriving on Elbaf, which we literally see Elbaf in this chapter, or at least part of Elbaf in this chapter. We also see Hamapo and Hibari being hunted by Garp, who's ready to rescue Kobe, who's been kidnapped by Blackbeard, so we know where that's going. So the hype train is setting off for that destination, so I can't wait to see that. So let's get right to this chapter. We start Yamato cover story, and immediately we get the answer to what Kinemon wanted Yamato to do. Kinemon wanted Yamato to return the sword to the Holy Inari Shrine pilgrimage, which is the shrine that belonged to Yasui, which is pretty cool considering this. I mean, this just if you see the map, it pretty much gives Yamato an excuse to like explore the whole destination of Wano, because it literally starts off in the Flower Capital and it goes all the way to Hakamai. So I don't know what's going to happen after that, but there you go. So that we get into this chapter, and like I said, the chapter itself mirrors what happened in the previous episode, because we go all over the world and we go to Navy HQ and we see the Marines. We see now, most notably, Hina doesn't really give much of an expression, but she's just like chilling in the background. But you see all the other male Marines, they're like freaking out because Vegapunk is about to reveal a huge secret, which the Gurusei do not want out, especially after this chapter. We see Fleet Admiral Sakazuki Alkaino. And speaking of the anime, we got introduced to like Hibari, who a lot of people seem to think that she is the daughter of Arcano. At this point, I don't see it, but that could be the case. But we'll have to wait and see. We haven't got too much information about that. The whole world is hearing about this whole catastrophe that the world's going to be plunged into water. And literally, this last 2 weeks, people have been speculating in the One Piece fandom what that could mean. How could the world be plunged into underwater? And admittedly, I did say it could have something to do with Fishman Island, or it could be the repercussion of the Mother Flame or the weapon that Emu used, which technically speaking, it looks like that's the case. And I find it very interesting. The first of the towns that's hearing this is Mockery Town, Mocktown, which is the same town that Bellamy first got knocked out by Luffy, which they also marked the rumor of Sky Pier actually being a thing, a Sky Island. So I remember how that worked out. So here they are. They haven't learned. They're still mocking it. I find it interesting, like other places we go to as well, like Water 7. That was interesting because that gets flooded all the time. In fact, it's mentioned here. We also see Paulie, which that's been a while since we've seen him, but that's pretty cool. This one got me really hyped up. Like, this chapter was loaded. Like, secret Easter eggs, like people we haven't seen in, like, I don't know, in years. Like, we go to Impel Down, which is another place that's underwater, and we get to see the Flamingo, who's living this up like it's the best day of his life, hearing all about all this. He's mocking Magellan because if the prison gets flooded, then they're screwed for devil fruit users as well. So, and then Doflamingo's like, oh, how about we go up higher? So Doflamingo, I feel, still has a role to play in the series. I don't know what, but I don't know why Oda would like show him if it's not going to lead to anything. But we do actually go to Fishman Island and Rigo Kingdom, and we find out that Shirahoshi's like, is that really going to happen? As King Neptune kind of like, oh, it sounds kind of like it's out of left field, which is what I said in the last chapter. But like I said, the simplest explanation turns out to be the most obvious. So we go back to again, the Marines are hearing this, but we also see a Vice Admiral there. Well, we also know that there's another Vice Admiral that's lurking around, which we haven't seen. We see 4 other Gurusei, and that includes Jupiter. So I was wondering about that. So yeah, so put that to rest. Jupiter's still alive. Most interesting one is Nash Juro, because the last time we saw him, he was being pinned down by a giant as Bonnie was about to attack. So I don't know how that worked out. And conveniently, Bonnie was absent in this chapter, along with Sanji and Frankie were absent. So I wonder what's happening with them right now. Let's say we see Mars rushing around. We see York running around. She's literally on point to try and find out, to take down that message before anything else is revealed. But it's still a little too late at this point. So then we go to another location who literally says the sea, and keep in mind the Vegapunk message that's being told worldwide. There's a couple of spectators that hears that following this calamity, the sea levels the world over will rise by 1 meter. A number of islands will inhabitable, since it's going to be submerged underwater. And there's a bystander that literally says, and no way, he actually saw it coming. So I'm wondering, is he the same guy that saw the devastation caused by the last attack by the Mother Flame, or by the weapon that Emu unleashed? I still think that's the Mother Flame, because why else would the Gurusei be looking to replicate it? We literally see it in this chapter. So that was interesting. But then this is the most shocking part of this entire chapter, to me at least. To me, one of the most shocking things to me is, like, we literally see members of the Big Mom Pirates, name not Katakuri. We literally see Charlotte Smoothie, and for what it's worth, Montdor. I personally would have liked to see the Madara lookalike instead, but can't get everything. So we got Charlotte Smoothie, which is something that I have questioned years ago. Like, where the hell is the rest of the Big Mom Pirates? So they are alive, when Oda could reveal that any time. So he chooses this chapter to reveal it. So what's interesting is, like, don't tell me he's talking about the earthquake. Now, Charlotte Smoothie hears this, and he's like, don't tell me he's talking about today's earthquake. Didn't he die after recording this? So it's like he knew about the effect of the mother flame before he left the message. So like I said, the simplest answer tends to be the most obvious. So we go to Long Ring Long Land, which we haven't seen in years, but I find it's kind of interesting considering what was revealed in this chapter. Considering a lot of people seem to think the Guma Guma no Mi or the Nika Nika model was used on this island through Awakening, which could be the case. I don't know why Oda would circle back to this island if that's not the case. But speaking of other characters tied to the Big Mom Pirates, we have Aokiji, who literally who's responsible along with a bunch of other members of the Blackbeard Pirates for kidnapping Pudding, members of the Big Mom Pirates. So I don't know what impact they're going to have in the story, unless they're going to like get back Pudding. That could be a possibility. And then we get the reveal that the earthquake I just predicted cannot strictly be considered a natural phenomenon. And then that's where we get like, okay, it has to be tied to the weapon that Emu uses, because it's not natural. It's effects from the previous attack from Emu that's caused things to go alright, and it's having drastic effects, and it's going to like flood the. Now to say it's going to flood the world's kind of like far fetched, because it's like, yeah, okay, I can see 1 or 2 islands, but the whole world through that's insane. So I'll continue my thoughts by the end of this, because I have a funny feeling it's not just going to end with 1 attack. We go to Nami's group, who's valiantly fending off Saturn. Obviously, it's not doing much of anything, so I will give him credit for that, especially with Nami leading the charge. So that's pretty epic. She's literally commanding Zeus to strike Saturn's head. It's having no effect because he literally uses his glaring attack to repel them back. Now we also see in this instance again, Saturn tried to target Robin, but Chopper blocks the attack again. So shout out to Chopper. But I gotta give Robin credit, because even in that condition, once Nami's group gets repelled by Saturn's glaring attack, I still don't know what that is. Hopefully when we get into the anime, that will be revealed of what he's actually doing. Nami, Usopp, Brook, they get sent flying. Chopper seems to be fine, but Robin uses Spider Net to catch them, so that was pretty epic. So last chapter was Nami protecting Robin. This time it's Robin protecting all of her friends in this chapter. So I like the correlation there. Speaking of anime, this is where I feel like it could be included, because it seems like there was a huge cut. Because we go from that skirmish to Saturn literally going and arriving at the lab with the Mother Flame. I mean, and he's not even in his he's not even in his zone form at this point. He's like just smashing stuff, and he comes across the Mother Flame, and we literally get to see it. So this is the technique that York could replicate that could help out Emu wipe out any island, much like they did Lucia Kingdom, which is a problem. And then you see captions of, we must be relentless, we have to eradicate all life forms. So now the Gorosei are getting desperate here, which I feel like is the sign of the beginning of the end, because the moment you become desperate, you start losing sight, and certain things you don't predict could happen. Like Saturn was so confident before arriving on the island. Look at the difference now. Now he's arrived here, like he's in the war zone, and now he's not as confident anymore. And with Luffy and the Giants teaming up, well, they're trying to get away, but Luffy's still trying to attack Top Man, which is hilarious because it's still not working. But if you notice, Luffy's back in gear 5th. So that was another jump that Oda decided to have. So it wasn't enough for Luffy to use Red Rock in the previous chapter. Even that didn't work. Gear 5th didn't work in attacking. And this to me was one of the scariest panels, because we go from there to we go to Pangaea Castle, where we see Emu, who's listening to everything. Emu could very well do something very soon. I saw that panel and I mean, oh boy, here we go. And we also see the Celestial Dragons. They are livid because he's about to reveal information about the Void Century. The Tenyo Beat are getting triggered, but there's others who don't know anything, which I think is interesting, because we see one of the ladies, and I think this is the mother of Charlos, who literally doesn't know anything about the history of the Void Century. Because he's like, what is he talking about? I could definitely see, because of what we saw with Musgard, rebelling against. I mean, he's obviously being executed, rebelling against the other celestial dragons. I could definitely see there being an uprising here, because if there's members that don't know what happened, you have members of the Gorosei as well as Ibu and celestial dragons trying to cover this up. Like, this must be some horrific shit. Like, because for other members of the celestial dragons not to be told this is kind of wild to me. But so I saw that, and I feel like that's going to lead to an uprising within the celestial dragons itself. Speaking of Elbaf, we actually go. It looks like what seems to be Elbaf, and we see Jagadi Soul. So, I mean, that's confirmation enough that number one, Soul is not on Egg Island, and number two, if that is Elbaf, he's there, and if he's alive. So you know what that means. Like, we got the Robin Soul reunion incoming. Talk about a blast from the past. We go from there and we go to Orange Town, which we literally see the old man and the dog that Luffy helped out, and Luffy helped out in the very first arc of this entire series. We even go to Amazon Lily because we see Margaret, who's listening in, and we go back to Nami, Brooke, Lilith, Chopper, and Robin. And obviously they managed to get away from Saturn. There's been obviously a huge jump cut because priorities are taken, and Saturn is trying to find a way to shut this communication and this message down. It looks like Brooke either sees Zoro, is calling out for Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei. So I get the feeling, because we saw Nash Joro by himself, like Bonnie and Sanji and Frankie, they could very well be on their way along with Zoro and Jinbei. I don't know why Brooke would be calling them if Brooke wasn't spotting at least something. What's interesting to me, this message is going out, and Robin is having a keener ear to this, as she should, because this could very well lead to secrets about the Void Century being revealed. Then we see the clouds, and we see the clouds are stretching, so this is like the doing of Edison. So it's like Edison's trying to do something to like extend the clouds so they can jump into the ocean. But the thing is, we know something's moving in the ocean, named the giant mecha, the giant robot. So yeah, so get caught by the government. So, which is funny because they were literally acting on behalf of the world government, but now they're like allies of the Straw Hats, letting them get away, which I think ties in with how this arc actually started. Now, I don't know what Lilth's going to do, because the satellites that remain on Egg Island are doomed, one way or the other. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to Stella, the main Vegapunk. I don't know what's going to happen to the other satellites, like Edison, like Atlas. We get the most important parts of this dialogue from Vegapunk, so I only know a small fragment of this 100-year-long tale. It wouldn't be right to leave you with baseless speculation, so I'll limit myself to the facts as I know them. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to go back to that in a minute. But as this message is going on, we see the Marines, they don't want this getting out. Meanwhile, Luffy in Gear 5th is trying to keep punching Topman, which did not work in the previous chapter, and it's not working here. But it's like, that's what Luffy does. So either these blows are going to have an initial impact, or Luffy's prepared for something bigger. Because, like, he's the reincarnation of Joyboy, and this kind of, like, ties into him as well, considering the Devil Fruit. The start of the story was born 900 years ago in a bountiful and advanced kingdom. Was this the kingdom, by the way? I'm just like the legendary sun god Nika from the fables of Elbaf. He, too, fought with a stretchy and elastic body, like, we didn't know that already. They called him Joyboy. He was the first man to take the seas, the first one to be called a pirate, and that's how the chapter ends. So that's the bombshell. Like, we're finally getting key information about what could be Joyboy's backstory, which we've been waiting decades for. So again, pay attention to the dialogue here, because Vegapunk Stella literally says, I only know a small fragment of this 100-year-long tale. He doesn't know everything. So just because he may know about Joyboy doesn't mean he knows about what happened during the Void Century. So keep that in mind. That was the first thing going through my mind. Like, is Oda going to reveal everything in this, like, literally coming up? Because I expected a Joyboy flashback this year. I literally said this back after Jump Festa. But I didn't expect it this soon. Like, I expected to get this flashback on Elbaf, but it would make perfect sense to lead into Elbaf. So there's two ways that Oda can go about this. One of them is through Vegapunk, considering he knows a little about the history about Joyboy. The other, and this is the most obvious, is this could be triggered by the Iron Mecha Giant robot that literally called for Joyboy and apologized. So that's the way that I think Oda could go about this. Like, he can kill two birds with one stone if he chooses to. It's like teasing the 6-inch or the foot long at Subway. It's like, I don't expect Oda to like reveal the whole foot long this soon. Like, even though technically speaking, it's the first arc in the final saga, but I'm down either way. Like I said, so keep that in mind. Like, I know people are gonna go crazy. Oh, Oda's gonna reveal the Void Century. Not so fast. Like, he may know key information about Joyboy, but that's a different story. The other thing, and this is what I want to go back to, is like we literally see Emu in this chapter, and like I said, I feel like Emu's gonna wipe Egghead Island off the face of the map, much like he did Lucia Kingdom, because I don't expect Emu is gonna let this conversation go on. He could wipe out the Gorosei. That could be the reason why they're there. I said even something more monstrous that could happen that can wipe them out. Because what's going to happen to the Gorosei after this? Like, the whole point of the Strides is to get away from Mega Island, not to get into a full-scale war with them. Even though Luffy's trying to attack Top Man right now. That literally goes back to what I said in the previous review. Like, I feel like Emu's going to do something, and that could be how the water submerges a lot of the One Piece world, where we could potentially get finally the backstory about Joyboy. From Robin's standpoint, I think Robin's going to learn about the Void Century without this. That's just my personal opinion. I'm literally thinking back to what Rayleigh told Robin back at Sabi Archipelago. It's like, don't you want to find out what happened for yourself and maybe come up to your own conclusions? More or less, like, you could learn something that we couldn't, which I feel like is going to happen. There's no reason why Oda would have Soul shown in this situation, especially with the caption in these panels, like the poneglyphs, that those lonely stones dwelling in various quiet and calm lands all over the globe. Now, why would he show that scene with that type of caption, unless it's not leading to anything even bigger? So characters we don't get to see, like, I find it interesting we see Margaret on Amazon Lily, but we don't get to see Boa Hancock, which I feel like she's going to join Cross Guild just because it's a way for Oda to have Boa Hancock and Luffy reunite. That's one way you could do that. Also, I feel like Law's going to tag along because Law has some unfinished business with Blackbeard, plus he's vastly invested in what's going on, what happened involving the Will of D. Like I said, there's a lot that could be revealed here, but is Oda going to reveal it all at once? That's my question. But let me know what you guys think down below. I thought this was a great chapter. We have a 2-week wait to find out if Oda's really going to go through and give us the whole backstory of Joyboy, or if it's just going to be partial backstory of Joyboy. Either way, I'm hyped. I didn't expect it this soon. Let me know what you guys think down below. That's going to do it for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Like the review if you did, a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Subscribe to for more One Piece. Catch you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.